Ladies and gentlemen, she got him. Yes, this is the episode of And Just Like That where Aidan Shaw comes back for a record 4th emotional beating. And considering how much it's been hyped, it's a mess. Leave a like, subscribe, and we'll get into it. We kick things off with Carrie literally clutching her pearls at the sight of Aidan's inevitable reply to her Dear John Corbett email. As has been tradition since the comparatively good old days of Sex and the City, her first instinct is to dissect this development like a high school biology frog. Over a lunch with Miranda and Charlotte, where it looks like that's exactly what they're eating. Evidently not keen on accepting her destiny and going full Miss Havisham, Carrie trots down to her inevitable Valentine's Day date with Mr. Shaw. After an excruciatingly contrived miscommunication, their fated catch-up is brief. Weirdly brief. Almost like they can't be bothered to do this storyline properly. And it's not hard to work out why. If Carrie and Big was supposed to be breakfast at Tiffany's, then she and Aidan were dumpster steaks behind Golden Corral. He was probably her best boyfriend, but easily her worst relationship. If the implication here is supposed to be that with Big out of the picture, their only obstacle is gone, and that's precisely what's going on here, then the show is essentially trying to pass off all blame for Carrie's own actions onto a corpse. The furthest it's willing to go is to have Aidan refuse to set foot in Carrie's apartment because of the awful history they have there. So now it's the apartment's fault. As far as I'm concerned, that apartment is the real victim here. If those walls could talk, they'd scream. But then they just get a hotel, which is like moving home but taking the termites with you. Regardless, Carrie Bradshaw once again gets her man for at least the rest of this season, and I suppose it's too much to hope that this is some vengeance-fueled long con. All I'm saying is, if Aidan pulls out another engagement ring, Carrie had better check he doesn't have a detonator in his other hand. We're reintroduced to a rare curio this week, a single Miranda Hobbs. Don't celebrate too soon, though, because we discover that in all the time she was with Che, Miranda gave as much thought to what it meant for her sexual orientation as the average reaction YouTuber gives to how they're going to fill an 8-minute video. Spurred on by Charlotte, who since last season has decided to become the Grand Marshal of the Miranda Pride Parade, Ms. Hobbs checks out the gay dating scene. By which I mean meets voice actor Amelia at a bookstore, where she's giving a ridiculously arch reading of Pride and Prejudice, a Jane Austen novel where the protagonist marries a man she hated. No surprise that Miranda can relate, then. She ends up invited to Amelia's apartment, which she arrives at dressed to the nines and expecting high romance. What she gets is a heel full of cat shit, in a dwelling most people would immediately assume they're going to die in. An extremely optimistic Amelia assumes that another Austen quote is enough to entice Miranda into a sheetless bed covered in cat toys with a woman who just wiped crap off her socks with her bare hands. Which, I would hope you agree, it is not. Miranda hightails it out of there before lame Austen makes it back from the laundry room, realising that dating is just as big a nightmare as it ever was. And we're left to wonder why she'd ever assume that dating women would be better. Has she met her friends? This week in Who Gives a Shit news, Naya bakes a chocolate souffle. That's it. The whole episode. And that's why this segment has the name that it does. Lisa's fashion choices are drifting somewhat. I'm hardly an expert, but this looks like she's off to work a shift at the pier in 1994. Ironically, she spends her week obsessively ruining son Herbert Jr.'s sex life for no apparent reason. Maybe the first reviews for her documentary are in. Ghosted by Miranda and forced to Airbnb their apartment, Che winds up returning to their old job as a receptionist at an animal hospital. Do you feel that? That's the universe correcting itself. But don't get used to it, I also feel a second wind coming. And Seine continues her weird campaign against the concept of coupledom by going ham on a massage parlour's Valentine's Day policy. Because nothing says secure singleton like hitting the Karen high score at the very idea of someone else's happiness. Nearly 2 seasons deep, and Anthony is finally given something to do. That is, other than deliver baked goods to Charlotte's apartment like a flamboyant variant of the Bimbo Bear. He's faced with a self-inflicted walkout of his hot fellas delivery men after realising that they're pumped with enough HGH to give the Hulk tits. And wouldn't you know it, right as Drew Barrymore invites him onto her talk show to whip out his loaf. In need of a bulging breadbasket to parade on TV, Charlotte comes through when she happens upon cash-strapped poet Giuseppe. And the Italian Stallion's unexpectedly whopping wang gives Drew and her audience enough flooded basements to bankrupt a mid-size insurance company. Giuseppe agrees to come work for Anthony temporarily, setting in motion what will become the upgrade to end all upgrades for Mr. Marantino in future episodes. At least Stanford's still living his best life in Tokyo, where I assume he's allowed the locals to believe that he's a vacationing Danny DeVito after a 3-part Queer Eye intervention. Remember last episode when I said that everything that happens to Charlotte and Harry is about their stupid kids? Keep it in mind. Rock's not so into their burgeoning modelling career, as it turns out, despite the over-the-top support of their school friends. I mean, come on. These are 13-year-old rich girls. If that was real life, one of them would have lost their mind, wheeled around and knocked Rock out with a burn book full of ugly selfies. The other cause of Rock's apathy is Charlotte herself, who by her own admission has gone full momager. After shopping Rock around like a sulky piece of meat, the youngest Goldenblatt announces that they'd rather spend their time being whiny and annoying in obscurity. I wonder which parent they inherited that from. And after debuting her minging original songs at school, Lily's about as popular as a mood stabilizer at a Red Table Talk. So Charlotte agrees to cede the apartment to her eldest's Galentine's Day party while she and Harry enjoy a Valentine's Day dinner. On the way out, Mrs. G fatefully samples some brownies brought by one of the partygoers. Yup, we're doing that. And so it comes to pass that Charlotte's accidental edible experience causes her to realise that her life is basically shit. She resolves to restart her long-dead career by accepting the gallery job offered to her by Mark Kasabian a few weeks back. And we're left with the only interesting thing to have happened to Charlotte in nearly 2 years having been caused by, of course, one of her nasty little crotch goblins. I'm starting to wonder if this show is secretly sponsored by Trojan. Last video's top comment came courtesy of Lewis, who'd give Carrie's wearable Barker Lounger the same unceremonious send-off she gave to Big Sulfuric Ashes. Good news for anyone in need of an ugly flotation device below. This video's question is, have you been on a date worse than Miranda's? Drop your tales of woe in the comments below, and the scariest will keep us up all night next time. Either way, thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, if you can't be good, be crusty.